growing the grains on premises, using draft power, and baking in a wood-fired oven. If you want to have all those three things, then you probably have to come here.
Today in Across the Fence, we look at a developing trend in Vermont agriculture that's rising in popularity on the farm and raising interest in bakeries around New England. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. There are few simple pleasures as wholesome or as delicious as bread straight from the oven. Add a little butter, maybe some jam, and nothing compares or tastes quite as good. Well, increased consumer interest in local foods has given rise to a search for our daily bread in and around the hills, valleys, and kitchens of Vermont. Across the Fence's Keith Silva visited a farm in Ferrisburgh to learn how one farmer is going with the grain.
That's the sound of fresh baked bread as it cools. And yes, it smells and tastes even better than it sounds.
If it doesn't sound foolish to say so, I'm kind of moved by the story of wheat and how community life in New England and community life in old Europe is really structured around the life cycle of the grain.
Eric Andrus and his family operate Bound Brook Farm and Good Companion Bakery in Ferrisburgh. Although he lacked experience as both a farmer and a baker, Andrus had a very specific idea in mind when he and his family moved here in 2006.
I wanted to find a way to grow cereal crops and yet to be able to make a living off of them. And I've always enjoyed baking bread, so I came up with this idea of growing a relatively small area of wheat and other cereals, doing the milling on premises, and baking it into bread. And through the value-added process, even a relatively small block of land is enough to economically carry the household. So that's the idea. I'm not a career baker any more than I'm a career farmer. I've kind of just learned these things through the school of hard knocks.
His vision and determination has put Andrus in a unique position as both a baker and a farmer.
At least for the moment, I probably have a monopoly on the growing the grains on premises, using draft power, and baking in a wood-fired oven. If you want to have all those three things, then you probably have to come here because we're the only ones in New England doing it for the moment. But I hope that changes soon. I hope somebody watches this program and says, yeah, that's what I want to do too. But not within 5 miles of me.
Growing grains like wheat, barley, and rye in cool, wet climates like Vermont can be hit or miss, but it's not impossible. Demand for local food, especially flour for baking bread, has researchers with the University of Vermont Extension testing various varieties of wheat for quality and consistency, ensuring that farmers will reap what they sow.
There hasn't been wheat variety testing or any grain variety testing in the state of Vermont for 20 years and therefore there's a lot of new varieties out there. There's some older varieties, and so we're trying to find the best varieties that are going to work in our climate and survive the winters here. In the case of fall wheats, have disease resistance and yield well and have good quality as well.
We have done several batches which are 100% our own flour or 100% flour from neighboring farms. Sometimes we've had good results and sometimes we haven't. It's a challenge. I've been narrowing in on some of the things that I think are particularly critical to good flour quality. I guess that's another thing that keeps me going is that, you know, like, this season's going to be different. This season, I know more. This season, I'm better armed. I'm going to really nail it this year, and it's going to be everything that I want. So that's kind of, you know, that's the game of farming. You know, one round goes not quite the way you wanted. Well, there's always next year, and you can start planning for it right now.
Once Vermont farmers can grow a consistent, high-quality product, they still need the proper harvesting and milling equipment to be able to turn their grain into a value-added product.
Our history of grain production in Vermont ended, you know, when people were using scythes and wheat cradles to harvest wheat. So there isn't hardly any infrastructure on farms to grow grain. That's changing, you know, as there's more of a demand and more farmers start to get into growing grains. You know, they're purchasing combines and grain bins. But for the most part, that's new equipment on our farms. When it comes to milling the grains, there's hardly any infrastructure in Vermont. On a commercial scale, there's no infrastructure. It's great, the farms that are growing wheat and milling it themselves, but it's a little inconsistent. You know, the years change year to year, and the variety quality is changing as they mill that. So, you know, there's challenges.
Andrus does mill his own grain. As for the question of harvesting, he found his answer in Vermont's agricultural past.
Now step up. Up, up. Animal power is appropriate for the scale at which I farm, and it gets the job done, and I find it personally gratifying, and it makes money for me and my family.
Operating both the bakery and the farm allows Andrus to wear many hats while he's at work. But it's clear to him what job matters most.
I'm a farmer first. Yeah, I'm here to produce food from seeds. The contradiction is that here in our early years, the bakery is really carrying the farm and helping the farm get up to speed. But in the end, it's the productivity and the promise of the farm that is the basis of everything we do, the basis of the bakery too, and our whole reason for being here. And everything we really have to contribute to the community derives from the farm.
In Ferrisburg, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.